I want to welcome everybody. Good morning to PSG of Mercer County, the professional service group of Mercer County, and also to say happy Aloha Friday. Welcome. So for those of you who've been here for a while, know that I do wear my Hawaiian shirt. And in addition to being Aloha Friday, if you haven't been paying attention, today is National Chocolate with Almonds Day. And so if you have any chocolate with almonds, we have a little bit, oh, Carol seems to. You seem to have, you have a little bit of a moment to go into your kitchen before we start the meeting. And for those of you that are here, here is chocolate with almonds. This is for the dark chocolate with almonds, if you like dark chocolate. For those of you who are not as bold, there's milk chocolate back there. We'll be leaving some of this with the library staff later. And so we are celebrating National Chocolate with Almonds Day. So if you so inclined, go out and find the chocolate bar with almonds and celebrate today. I want to welcome everyone to PSG of Mercer County. We are a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. It doesn't really matter why you're in career transition, whether your company made their own decision to reorganize, or if you're taking your own career into your own hands, or maybe you need to take personal time or family time and you're getting back into the workforce. We are here to provide all manner of resources and information to help you make you more efficient and effective in your own job search. Among the resources that we do have a LinkedIn group. Certainly being in job search, you should be on LinkedIn. You should be joining LinkedIn groups. LinkedIn groups are great. Virtual resource, virtual network extends the number of people that you're connected with who may be able to help you. Our group has over 1,700 members, and they are all people who have one time or another been a job seeker. So they kind of get what we're all going through, and that becomes very important when you reach out and contact them. They understand kind of the mission and the questions and the source of the questions that you have. So please join our LinkedIn group if you have not yet done so. We have over 1,700 members. We do have our website. Our website is psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. It is more than just a landing page. It is over 120 pages of resources, again, for you, the job seeker. Among the information that we have, our website at the top has a menu, 7 or 8 menu items. One is called Career Options. And Career Options, once you dig into that series of pages through that menu, you have access to things like getting started in your job search, which is not just for getting started, but maybe you're kind of stuck in a rut a little and you're restarting. Maybe you want to think about working as a consultant. We've got some guidance for that. Starting a business, a lot of information that's there. It's not the be-all or end-all of your job search information, but maybe a good place to get started or to get some additional information. And so we're very appreciative, as always, of our good friends at the Princeton Public Library. And we were chatting here just before we all got online. This is actually our 10th year anniversary. The PSG of Mercer County has been at the Princeton Public Library, and it's been a wonderful experience for us. We started here at the library in 2012, June 2012, when I was just a little fledgling member at the time. And somehow I got into this role. And so we're starting our 11th year. So it's a great time to be back at the library, restarting a new anniversary. And so you were wondering, does the library have resources? This library, when you have the chance to come on back, you'll find that they do have a tremendous amount of the traditional library resources and such. In addition, they have a tremendous number of audio, visual, and other resources, some of which you can even borrow and use on your own. So all is available. So our ground rules are going to be very similar to what we've done before. For those of you online, you can simply use chat, and chat will be a means for you to kind of digitally raise your hand. Just unmute yourself when you have a question for Alan. And actually, you know, it may make sense, just unmute yourself and say, "Excuse me, Alan, I got a question." We're not a big group today. This is the smallest group of the year. And so let's do that. But there seems to prevent any feedback. When you're done with your question, I'll just ask you, please mute yourself, because we'll just make sure there's no accidental feedback that sometimes comes through. Okay, so with that, PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome Career Coach Alan Kirshner. Alan is a career coach with his own company, Kirshner Coaching Solutions. His passion is to help clients secure their next great employment opportunity. He provides assistance with job search, strategies, interview preparation, salary and benefits negotiation, LinkedIn profile creation, and resume development. PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome career coach and the member of the PSG of Mercer County Executive Committee, Alan Kirshner. Yay! Real applause. You want me to leave the chocolate for you, or?
Yeah, I might need it. Hi, everybody out in go-to meeting land and in person. It's really great to be here. They're still online. There. Okay. Yeah, we're working through a little technical. No worries. So it's really a pleasure to be here. I mean, it feels a little bit strange. It's been a long time, since we've had a meeting here together and, doing it hybrid. I've been on some of those meetings, but I haven't really been involved in running one. So it's a little bit different, but it's great to be back. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. So it's going to be an open forum, as David was saying. So I'm here to answer any and all questions. And I know we have a lot of people in the audience, both here and online, that are active and ask a lot of questions. So I'm really looking forward to that. I just wanted to start off briefly and talk a little bit about what's going on in the job market now based on what I'm seeing. I just had a coaching session last night with one of my clients, and he just landed a position, and that was the third different company that he's had interviews with this summer. So based on his experience and what I'm seeing in the market, I think things are pretty robust overall. So typically we like to say, it's the summer and people think things slow down, but there is a lot of activity and there's a lot of hiring that's going on. So I would strongly encourage people that are in the job market to stay with it, stay active, keep doing your networking, and keep applying for things. My client actually, they were finding him based on his LinkedIn profile. So he had several recruiters reach out to him based on his LinkedIn profile, and he's in the accounting and financial world. So he eventually, the position that he was offered was through Robert Half. So we talk about how networking is key, but the recruiters are out there as well now, and they're being active. So I would say it's really an opportunity, and it's a good time to stay active. Things do slow down a bit in the summer, but they are very active this summer in particular, I would say. So keep things going. So who wants to start it off with the first question? Who's the first brave volunteer? All right.
And use the microphone?
Yeah.
Use the microphone, please, if you don't mind.
A question for you about your client.
Once you reach a certain age, my age, a lot of the HR people, a lot of the hiring managers are all much younger. Now, I'm looking in the same field that I've been in for my whole life. And I'm current on current technology, today's technology, but obviously since I've been in the field for a number of years, I've progressed as technology has changed. Obviously, I know I should highlight the fact that I'm current on today's technology. My question is, should I reference the migration through various technologies, or by going back to old ancient things, am I just dating myself? I'm trying to demonstrate that I started here, I progressed through this, I then, as the field changed, I went to this, so on and so forth.
That's a good question, Michael. What I would say is that whenever you're presenting information about yourself, be it your resume, your LinkedIn profile, or when you're networking with people, you want to think about what information is going to be helpful to getting your next job. So the things that you did in the past that maybe the technology is more obsolete or they're not looking for that now. I don't feel that it's critical that you have to have that, all that information on your resume. I get your point with what you're saying, that it's nice to show that, you know, you're somebody who's flexible and can progress and you've moved through different technology, but you have to think about it from the company's perspective. What do they need you to do? And you look at the job requisition, you know, for the position that you're interviewing for. That's what they're looking for. So it's great to show that you kept progressing, that you're involved in the technology of today. So that, I would say, is much more important. Things that you're not going for or that you're not seeing out there as needs that are out in the market, I don't think it's so critical to have those either on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, or talk about them when you're networking. It's really like, what have you done for me lately? So what's most important now, and what are they looking for? So you're always looking at it from the perspective of what do they need, as opposed to what my needs are. You know, you're looking at it from the perspective of who the employer is. John, you were starting to ask a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, for this candidate that just got the spot, do you have any sense of how many interviews and over what period of time?
Yeah, that's a good question. The interview process went really quickly. We spoke the last time about.
We didn't hear the question.
Okay.
They just repeated the question.
Yeah, the people in the live audience didn't hear the question, so I'll repeat it. John was asking my client that I was just mentioning, what was the process like? How long did it take from when he started interviewing to get the offer? Very quick, actually. It was, we had a session about 2 weeks previous, and that was really starting the process. So he spoke to the person from Robert Half. He had a contact with somebody in HR, and he talked to the hiring manager and an additional person. And it was within a matter of just several weeks of time. So obviously the position was something that they needed to fill and was very important. And that's one of the things they mentioned to him during the interview process. They said that they're losing a lot of people now and that they're really short-staffed. So in those situations, that's ideal. You know, it's not like you put a resume in and, you know, the process can take weeks or months. So if they're missing staff that's critical, then there's a big urgent need, so they're going to move faster. He was also mentioning to me that the company that he's currently working for, that he's going to be leaving, somebody in his organization got another opportunity, and his company came back with a counteroffer and almost doubled the person's salary, because they were also losing people. They were kind of short-staffed as well too. So that was an indication that there's definitely demand that's out there. There's less of a supply maybe than there has been in the past of employees. And so you have some leverage and there's some opportunity, even, you know, when they need you that badly, there's even more room to negotiate than maybe there has been in other job markets in the past.
Did your client mention any tricky, you know?
Hold on one second, I'm sorry.
John, hold on just a second.
The HDMI cable was pulled out a moment ago, and that
Probably reset
changed
the
our
speakers.
sound settings. Stick with us one sec.
Yep.
We want everyone to be able to hear. Okay, go right ahead. Thank you so much.
I'm curious, Alan, are you seeing from your clients that there are more opportunities for people who should work as contractor, more contracting opportunities? Are you seeing full-time employee with companies? What kind of the mix you're seeing?
That's an interesting question, David. And what I'm seeing, and it's, you know, not a massive sample, but I'm seeing more that they're looking for the full-time people at this point than the consultants. So that does seem a little bit different than what we've been experiencing in the more recent past too, where sometimes you needed to take a consulting role to get in, or a lot of things were more project oriented. So again, I think just looking at economics, it's the supply and demand. There's just more demand out there than there's supply of people with some of the skills that they're looking for. So they're hiring people full time with benefits and all. That's been the experience based on my sample population. Thank you. John,
on some of the outdated technology. There are these particularly large clients who have legacy that they're moving either to newer ones, either completely getting out of the old or moving from a mainframe to a Linux environment, that sort of thing, where they still need people with knowledge of the older technologies. So I think it is needed out there to know or have those skills, but I also believe that it would be mentioned within the job description.
Yeah, Don, that's a very good point. Obviously, when there's conversions going on, you need people that know the older technology as well as the new technology. So it certainly can be a niche. So getting, piggybacking back to Michael's point, if the technology is there, even though it's older technology and there's still a need for it due to conversions, or there's still companies that are using it, then that's certainly skills that you want to keep in mind and keep on your documentation. John, did you have a follow-up question too when we were having the technical issue? I know you were starting to talk.
I just wondered if your client mentioned anything about tricky or difficult questions during the interview process.
He actually didn't give me that much of a readout on what happened with the process. He said in general terms that, they liked what he had to offer. His background was good. There was a good connection chemistry-wise, and he didn't go into a lot of detail as far as the questions that were asked. He was, and again, this may be more of a sign of the times too, he wanted to talk to me last night specifically about negotiating with the salary and benefits. So again, it's something to keep in mind that, you could see based on the speed of how things occurred, that you may have more leverage now with negotiating than you might have had in the past as well too. So that was, we spent the whole coaching session discussing the strategy about what you might want to go back with. And he had a verbal offer. So I told him absolutely that you need to get it in writing just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and that makes the offer more firm. So he was in the process of waiting to get the written offer as well too.
I don't want to monopolize the stage here, but did in the Q&A regarding this position, Dave, no, it's not Dave. In the Q&A regarding this position, were there any questions about diversity? Hello.
You're talking about the client that we've been talking about now?
Yes, right. And I guess I just wondered generally, because it was something on LinkedIn you may have seen this past week about this question in the interview process. I just wondered, you guys who are out there interviewing, are you getting any questions about diversity? Hello.
I would say that, it's certainly something that a lot of companies are interested in. I see that in a lot of the job recs, and there's a lot of buzz out there on LinkedIn and other places about diversity. So it's, in my experience, I would say it's definitely something that's important to companies.
Well, I mean, for most of us who may or may not be in the hiring position, when you get a question like that, what do you say? Is it, love and motherhood and let's get on to the weather, or what? Another question I asked Gabe Gabaccio from Janelle's group and Jerry Crispin was, should we ask what they're doing to make the work environment, if we have to go in hybrid or full-time, what they're doing to make that work environment safe? In view of some of the stuff that's going on.
That's a good question, John. I would say that based on my experience and, polling people, and I know neighbors and other people, that I network with, most places are not back full-time yet. Some are back hybrid, and hybrid might mean 2 days a week, maybe even 3 days a week, and it's really varied. That's one thing I didn't mention about my client also. The reason he was looking to change positions, or one of the main reasons he was looking, was that his company was going from 2 to 3 days in person, and he moved for family reasons, and he had a very long commute, and he wanted to find a job that was 100% remote. So those were the types of positions that he was looking for, and the offer that he got is fully remote. So I think that this model of remote or hybrid is going to be here for quite a long time, based on what I'm seeing. And I think there's companies are being flexible out of necessity. I think there's some benefit to the company as well, with people working remote, because then they have teams that are working all over the country, potentially, and you can hire people that don't have to be, right in the geographic area where the company resides. As far as, what companies are doing to make things safe when you go back in the office, I think that, companies are, they have their set of protocols. I think, for the most part, based on what I'm hearing, things are optional as far as masking goes. It seems to be, based on what I'm seeing, that it's similar to what you're seeing in other places too. In some cases, venues are strongly recommending a mask but not requiring it. So I think it really varies depending on the organization. But at this point, nobody that I've heard about is back completely full-time. So I think it's this is going to be the mode for a while. And again, depending on the ebb and flow, if there are other variants that are more severe, then they may cut back a day or two. But the hybrid model, I think, is really going to be here for quite some time.
I have a friend at a company, and they're doing a hybrid model of where they are in the office for 1 week and then remote for 1 week, and it cycles like that. And most likely that's because it helps to make cleaning and disinfecting easier between, between shifts, if you will, of having some in office and some not.
There's a whole variety of different ways that they're doing it. They could be alternating by day, who comes in, which groups come in. They could be alternating by week. It could be, people are coming in for certain meetings. So I think it really varies based on what the needs are, what the comfort level is of the people involved, and how it's working with the companies. I know, multiple companies have reduced their footprint. There's a big pharma company near where I live, and they gave up a number of their buildings, and they're down to like one building. A friend of mine also is in North Carolina, and that's the approach that his pharma company has taken as well too. So companies are also using the opportunity to change their footprint as well too, and it's got a financial savings for them too. So I think it's not all being driven strictly by headcount or employee needs. I think it's being driven strategically, from a cost standpoint as well too.
There does also seem to be an opportunity to look for jobs outside your geography, with a hybrid type of model.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that opens up the market. I agree with you 100%, David. That opens up the market a lot. So you can be working, virtually from just about anywhere. And just to give another example, one of my sons is doing an internship this summer, and the previous summer he did it. It was primarily hybrid. I mean, it was kind of transitioning from being all remote to being hybrid. And this summer, where he's working, they're bringing not everybody, but they're in more often than they were previously. But the team that he's working with is a virtual or remote team, and he has people on his team. He's in Texas now. He has people on his team that are in Canada. He's got somebody, I think, in Europe. So the team was virtual anyway, so they wouldn't be all under the same roof. So, I mean, that's a benefit, I think, to us as employees as well as employers, and that opens up the job market as well, where the geography isn't as critical as it was before.
Alan, can I ask you a question?
Sure, Alex.
Yeah. First of all, do you mind? I have vision problem this morning. I see double here. Do you mind if I call you David Schuckman?
Whatever works for you.
No, you see, I see double here, David Schuckman, so it's confusing a little bit. But anyhow, here's my.
I see under the name. Yeah. Yeah, I was just trying to keep a little bit more of a low profile. So.
Yeah. Oh, so it's not a vision problem. Okay, good. Alan, somebody goes for an interview and doesn't get the job, getting rejected, and he hears later on, we found somebody better fit. What do you think that means, and what can that person do the next time?
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about in the past, there's only one person that gets the job, so there's a number of other people that interviewed that didn't get the job. So why is that? Typically, because the person they pick has more of what they're looking for. So it could be more in the background, could be better as far as the chemistry or the personality goes. You don't always know. And, a lot of us coaches, myself included, will say, try to get feedback. Typically, due to legal ramifications and things, you don't often get a lot of feedback. So you don't really know, but you try to, what I recommend to my clients is you try to do a debrief yourself too. If you don't get feedback, then you think about how'd the interview go? Were there questions that I stumbled over that I didn't feel like I gave as good an answer as I could? Did it just sound like what they were looking for was different than what was in the job rec? Or, they interviewed me, so obviously I had some of the background, but again, going back to my client that I've been talking about a lot today, the other couple of interviews he had, he wasn't as good a fit. Like his background wasn't as close to what they were looking for. So, part of the strategy when I coached him was explaining his transferable skills. And, if he hadn't done X, he did Y, which was similar to that. So, there could be a lot of reasons as to why the person didn't get the job. You don't always know what it is, but my advice is to try to control the things that you can control. If you feel like, there were things that didn't go as well, question-wise, then you want to make sure the next time you have an interview that you prepare that question, especially, you rehearse it, you say it out loud, you do a mock interview with somebody so that you feel more comfortable with that. But, at the end of the day, the company is looking to hire the person who's going to be the best fit, who's going to work the best with the organization and has, will fit in the chemistry of that. So, it's not because of you that you didn't get it. It's because usually somebody else had something more than what you had.
You know, this is an insult. If somebody says, listen, you don't fit, that could be very easily taken as an insult. And so the question is, what can he or she do the next time better?
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. You know, I like to say to clients, you know, take all the feedback constructively and use it, you know, to help you in the future. Because, you know, it's if you haven't been out there for a while interviewing, you know, you may not be as comfortable with the way interviews are going now, especially doing the video interviews or the ones where you're just recording yourself and you don't get a second opportunity to, you know, if it didn't come across as well as you'd like to do that. So my opinion is any opportunity you have to interview where you have an interest in the position, it's a good chance to get out there, get more experience doing interviewing. It will make you feel more comfortable. You'll see what it's like, and each one is going to be a learning experience. So I think there's a big upside to getting and going on interviews, even if it's not an exact fit. So I think it's important to get that.
Alan, to that point, I heard Ed Hahn recently say if there's 10 things on that spec and you got 5, throw your hat in the ring and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's really no hard and fast rules, John, about like, you know, do you have to have 8 of those 10 or, you know,
Right.
they're going to want 10 of 10. But if you feel like you're a good candidate for that role and you can bring important things to the table, I say go for it. You know, what do you have to lose? It's just a bit of your time. But, you know, it's not necessarily the best qualified person that gets the job. So not everybody, and I would venture to say most people, if there are 10 requirements, don't have 10 exactly the way, you know, it's laid out there. So I would encourage people, if you feel like it's a good opportunity for you, if you feel like you would be a significant contributor for that role, go for it, regardless. You know, don't get hung up on it's 5 things that I have or it's 10 that I have. You know, if it's completely not a fit, then it's really wasting your time and it's wasting the company's time too. So, you know, there needs to be a certain level of fit there in order to move forward.
So I want to take the pressure off John Sampson so he doesn't have to ask all the questions. So I'm willing to help him.
It'll be a tag team.
Okay, it's Friday and the boss calls the employee in and said, you know, we love you, you're wonderful, but starting Monday, we don't need you anymore because XYZ. The person's a shock. Certainly it's not a good weekend. But then what do you think are the logical steps the individual has to take to get back into the world of employment?
What I think is really important is the mindset. So in job search, I don't think we talk about it as much as we should. We concentrate a lot on interview prep, the resume, LinkedIn profile, but one of the things I really like to stress a lot with my clients, and I think something that I add value to them working with me, is the mental side of job search, because I think it's really, really critical that you have to be in the right mindset in order to do that. So when you go through, you know, something like that happen, and that, you know, where you get called in and, you know, thank you for your service, but, you know, the company's going in a different direction, or, you know, we needed to restructure. I think you have to take a deep breath. I don't think it's always the most prudent to jump right into something else. You have to be mentally ready and be ready to be in the game of job searching. So if you need to take a little bit of time off in order to get in the right frame of mind, I think that's important. It's important to have a network of support, you know, be that family, friends, people through job search community or other people. But another thing I would say too is that we talk about it a lot, that networking is so important, and you should be networking whether you're looking for a job or you're not, because you never know when that opportunity may happen where you're in the job market too. So I think one of the things probably a lot of us where that happened was that you don't necessarily have as active a network as you could or you should. So I think it's important to have the network active and stay in touch with them whether you're working or you're not working. I think it's also important to have your documentation in order. So, you know, if you haven't switched jobs or you've been in a job for 10 years, it's really still important to have your LinkedIn profile up to date as well as your resume up to date. Because again, if that happens on the Friday, then, you know, you're ready to go documentation wise by Monday. So I think being prepared is always important. Another thing that I like to talk about with clients is that job search can be really challenging. There's a lot of ups and downs. You know, there's negativity when you're not hearing back from people, or when you apply for a job, you think you were an ideal candidate and you don't get picked. So there's a lot of that up and down. And my feeling too is that you can't only focus on your job search. You have to have some downtime and other things that you do as well too. So it's good to stay involved, you know, exercise wise, make sure that you're keeping up, you know, with eating, with, you know, doing things that you like to do outside of the job search. It's not something you can do around the clock. It's just they're diminishing if you're trying to do it for too much of your day. You have to have breaks in the day. I mean, it's no different than when you're working a full-time job. You're not working every minute of the day. You know, you're taking breaks for lunch, you know, you're talking to other people, you know, there's other things going on too. So the job search should have that same type of mindset as well too. But really, the key thing really is to be mentally prepared to jump back in to do the job search, because you have, you know, as Marty Latman would say, you know, always be positive. You have to be in the right mind frame. You have to be positive. So you need to be ready. And if you're not, taking some time off to get yourself ready, I think is really a critical step to being successful in getting the next opportunity.
I agree with everything you said. Very well put. My question is more tactical and more specific. What should the individual do starting Monday morning? I know you said improve your attitude. I agree totally. But, you know, improving attitude is not change a channel from channel A to channel B, and channel B, your attitude is fantastic. It's not one of those. So what is a Monday morning? What is a person to do Monday morning?
I like to say start out with small things. The ultimate goal is to find a job, but there's multiple steps that go along the way. So one of the first things that I would do is reach out to my network and say, hey, this is what happened. This is where I'm at. Can I set up some time with you to talk about it, get your advice, you know, so you can help me strategize with what my next steps are going forward. So I think the support aspect of it is very important, you know, from the beginning. Talking it through a little bit too, because, you know, it can be very devastating to people. You know, can be a blow to your ego, and, you know, financially it can be very challenging too. So I think you need to talk it out with your family, you know, to explain what the situation is. You may need to tighten your belt a bit for a while and cut down on things. So if it impacts other members of your family, I think it's important to discuss it too, to let them know. So I think the communication part of it would be one of the first things that I would do, you know, to start out. Again, depending on how prepared you are for this, if you're ready and your documentation, your resume is ready, I don't see any issue, and you're mentally prepared, I don't see any issue with sending it out, getting in touch with recruiters that you've talked to in the past, starting to look on job boards, which again, that's not the end all and be all, but opportunities can present themselves that way too. But I think deploying or maybe redeploying your network would be the first thing that I would say would be what I would recommend doing. All right, John, I guess you're up since Alex had the last question. Now, anybody else, please chime in.
Your point there about the first thing is key up your network. I had that exact experience. That was a big consulting engagement. We knew it was going to end. We finally get the date. Okay, the next Monday you're out free wire, start doing stuff. And it really did pay off. I would say, you definitely want to keep your LinkedIn profile up. You have a resume at the ready, blah, blah, blah. But more than that, do you have your network and a bunch of addresses for this purpose or others? Do you have one that, you can tap right into and let's get started? I would say this. While it might sound like, gee, it's time to take a respite, take a vacation, do whatever, I'd get right at it. I don't know the number of people who took vacations because they hadn't taken them in years or whatever, and they come back and say that was a mistake. You got to get right at it. Because one, there are opportunities that you may well be missing by not doing anything. And two, wait a minute, you just got a new job, and it is a real job.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest, taking a huge amount of time off, but if you need a little time, to transition into that mindset, I think that can be time well spent. As we've been talking about at the beginning of the discussion, the market is good now. So why not get involved in a market that's good? If we go into a recession or things get worse economically, then that could change significantly. So, strike while the iron is hot, I would say. Don't wait around. When things are good, jump in there, and you can even have potentially more than one opportunity, and then you can negotiate one versus the other too. So yeah, I would say if it happened, today's Friday, if it happened today and you're ready to go Monday, jump right in there.
Alan, this is Bill. I would like to chip in. It also gives you time to take stock. So maybe Monday morning, you start to inventory a little bit. What have your accomplishments been? If you're not ready to network, or in addition to networking, what are the things that you've done you're really proud of in your old job that you can carry forward to a new employer, so you can start that list, as well as taking financial stock. Are you in a good position financially? Where can you tighten your belt? So I think obviously there's plenty to do, but I don't want to ignore that preparation. Thanks.
Yeah, Bill, those are great points. I would say too, we haven't talked about it at this point, but when you said taking stock, what I would also propose is that it may be an opportunity for you to change. You decide you want to switch to a different career, you want to do something different, you want to, instead of working full-time, you want to work part-time, or you want to be a consultant. So it is an opportunity also to evaluate things. When we're working, typically we're busy, between work and family considerations and things like that. So this is a time really where you have a little bit more time to think and decide, do I want to keep doing what I've done in the past, or do I want to try to do something different? You know, how much longer do I feel like I want to be working? What do I want to be doing? And a lot of people, I think, as part of this great resignation, or, you know, as a result of COVID and the implications, are rethinking things too and deciding, you know, I don't want to go back and do, you know, 2 hours each way commuting into New York every day. I'm done with doing that. And, you know, there are a lot of people that are doing that. Case in point with my client, you know, he, due to family considerations as well as that longer commute, he decided, no, you know, I'm not doing that. So even though he, you know, realized, you know, things would need to be different, he had the opportunity and he wanted to pursue something different. So it's really a good time to evaluate things. And like Bill was saying, obviously, it's very important to think about, you know, taking stock with your finances and with the impact to family and other things of that nature. Gary?
Alan, hi, this is Gary Landy. I just wanted to chip in a few comments about interviewing. Been a number of years since I did interview, but these experiences were so strong, I always will remember them. So like everybody else, I had good experiences and bad. The bad ones, of course, is the one where you don't get an offer. But I realized one thing after each interview and as the interviewing continued, and that is there's a big part of this which has to do with chemistry. And chemistry is a very, very important part of making that special connection with the person you're talking to. And a couple of times, I was able to have such a good relationship with the interviewer. I got 2 job offers that I decided afterward I'm not really qualified for. Isn't that backwards, right? You shouldn't think that you're the pick of the litter every single time, and you shouldn't think that you won't get a job offer, because there are times that you won't. What I did to help myself is I had a couple of human resources friends. And what I did along the line of interviewing, when I didn't get an offer, is I shared my experience with them. And I would go through the details of the discussion of the interview. And the outcome of that, unfortunately, was always the same. Gary, this all sounds very good, but there must have been some reason why there was somebody else who was a better fit for the position than you. Don't bring yourself down for this. What you got to do is do some of the things that we were talking about this morning, and that is keep on going. Keep on going until you meet the right situation and it's the right fit both ways. And as a sidebar on this, I guess my feeling is interviewing reminds me a lot of the dynamics of dating. It just does. Think about it. It has to be a very strong mutual interest from both people for all the right reasons in order to make it work. So I wanted to just share those points with you.
Oh, that's great. Thanks very much, Gary, for sharing that information. One of the things too, you know, I think talking about what Gary was just mentioning and getting back to what Alex was saying as well too, I think it's important, the research, you know, going into an interview and even just getting interviews by doing the research and connecting with people that are internal. You know, we talk a lot about culture and are you a fit there? How do you know that? It's not always an easy thing to figure out. So if you can get a connection to that organization and talk to somebody and learn more about the organization and they learn more about you, that makes it easier for you to determine whether it's a cultural fit as well as for the company to determine that too. But it sets you apart from your competition. So we were talking about, you know, with either dating or with a job search, only one person gets picked, right? So how do you differentiate yourself from other people? One, you have something more unique than they have. But two, they like you, you know. there's a likability factor as well too. So if you can network in and learn more about the organization and they can learn more about you, this applies even, if there's not a specific job that's open at the time, there may be something in the future that's open, or they may create something for you. So that aspect, I think that's one of the key aspects of networking where you can differentiate yourself. One, it shows that you've done a lot of research, that you're somebody who's thorough, and two, you're looking to see how well you fit and also to show the company how well you fit. David?
Allow me to continue to chime in a little bit on the question that I initiated. What to do Monday morning after being fired. And I am totally at the other end of the spectrum versus you. I suggest don't call your network Monday morning. You know why? You sound like sour grapes. What do you have? Let's say they fired me Friday and you are my friend, Alan. I know you for a long time. I know you're very supportive. And I say, Alan, listen, I just want to tell you what happened to me Friday. You know, that bastard that made my life miserable for the last 6 months, he fired me Friday. Can you believe that? What can you do? You are not in a position to help me. I know I will feel so good being able to share my agony with someone else. I know it feels good. It's not practical. What I suggest, two things. Monday morning, call perhaps some professional help. Call a coach. Discuss this with the coach. The coach is in the business of solving such problems. Other people, friends and so forth, they're good people, they're willing to listen to you, but they're not able to help you de facto in real terms. The second thing I always suggest to people, do a self-evaluation. When have you done a self-evaluation the last time? You worked. You don't do self-evaluations, but it's been 6 years since you looked up and identify what are your strengths, what are the areas for improvement, and more importantly, what is what you'd want to do in the future. Once you are clear in what you want to do in the future, now you're ready to go after it. That would be my advice.
Oh, that's great suggestions, Alex. I completely agree with you. And, similar to what Bill was saying with taking stock of things, it is a great opportunity to do that. Yeah, I mean, depending on what your state of mind is at that point, it could have been a relief and you're not at all angry or upset about it. Or you could be, have been blindsided and you're really upset about it. So, when it's happened to me a couple of times. One of the times I got in touch with one of my best friends. We went out, the next day and spent time together and talked about it and, enjoyed each other's company. And he had been through it previously as well, too. So I think, I would consider that part of the networking aspect of it. Not necessarily, if you're ready to go and you want to start talking about jobs, I don't see any issue with that. But if you need to just talk through to get those feelings out, to just, vent with somebody who's there to be supportive, not necessarily who's going to, be the person that's going to give you the most career guidance. But, I think that's important too. So it really depends in my mind on where you are mentally as far as the situation goes. David?
For the benefit of those of you, Paul, this is one of the David Shuckmans.
This is not the imposter David Shuckman. This is the real one.
Well, the real one, please stand up. I'm curious the process you see when someone comes to you to work with you as a career coach, and maybe for any of us who may be thinking about working with a career coach. My thought is someone may come to you and say, Alan, I'm interested in working with you to talk about X, whatever their X is. But I'm wondering if whatever they come to you with, if that's too narrow, if you really, what should they be looking for when they start to work with a career coach? So what do people typically come to you for, but what do you think should be the first thing they should talk to you or a career coach about?
I would say that really depends on where they're at. The person who, I've been talking about all meeting, he should be getting royalties or something, I guess. But he contacted me because he said, I have no problem getting interviews. As a matter of fact, recruiters are constantly getting in touch with me. I'm not getting the jobs. I'm seeing other people getting the jobs. So I need help with interviewing. So he had a very specific need. So, there are certainly things that I think would be helpful. He sent me his resume and things. But one of the conclusions I came to was, the resume, maybe it isn't exactly the way I would do it or where I would suggest you go with it, but it's effective, it's working, he's getting interviews. So you don't have to scrap that thing. What's not working is something about the way he's interviewing. And, his credentials were very strong. So it depends on what the person needs. He didn't necessarily need the whole component of networking or of evaluating what he wanted to do. He knew he wanted to stay with what he was doing. So we didn't have to get into that component of it. Really, for me, it really just depends on what the person needs.
And so to pick up on that a little bit, and I don't know that person. So if someone says, I'm getting interviews, but I'm not getting offers, and, which sounds a little bit about that, then what if the challenge isn't that he's not a good interviewer, but his resume is getting him interviews with the wrong people? So that's why I'm kind of thinking, do we, as the job seeker, with guidance of career coaches, maybe need to take a half step back, or is there a holistic view? Is there a process that we should be open to?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question. You need to, do that assessment, I guess. I would say, it's what we've been talking about a lot today, to figure out what's happening or where you want to go. Because it may be the same as what you were doing before. It may be different. So I think kind of a self-assessment, if I was going to generalize, I would say I would typically mention to somebody, think about one of the questions I'll ask is, put together a list of what you're good at, what you like to do, what some of your accomplishments have been in your career, and what you're passionate about. So thinking about, you may be good at something, but you don't like doing it, or you don't want to keep doing it. So I think part of what a good strategy would be to do that kind of self-evaluation and think about what those things are, what you liked about your last role, what you didn't like about your last role. It can give you some direction. You can take, surveys or things like Myers-Briggs or, some of the interest surveys. Also, I recommend that at times as well too. But I think doing the self-evaluation is a good thing. But, it just really, I think it just depends on person's circumstance too. They may really know what they want to do, and it's just a matter of getting them there, helping them, because they need to learn better job search strategies. They work for the same company for 20 years, and they haven't been out in the job market a long time, so they don't know what are the most effective ways of getting a job these days. It can really significantly vary. I think it depends on a lot. I don't go in with an agenda when I'm coaching somebody. It's really, they're the driver of what they need and what they want, and I'm there to guide and to give suggestions. It's not a one size fits all. It's not like a template. Say, okay, we're going to go through the needs assessment. We're going to go through your resume. It doesn't necessarily work that way.
right. Alan, I wondered what advice you gave to your client who just got the job about continuing to interview.
One of the things he discussed, I had mentioned one of his colleagues had got another offer and then got a counter offer, for almost double the amount, and ended up staying. So he felt like once he got the offer, he may get a counter offer as well too. So we walked through a little bit about what does that mean. And, I gave him some suggestions about, my opinion about getting a counter offer. But, one of the things we discussed was, do you want to take this offer too? So we discussed what were the benefits of doing it, taking the offer and leaving versus, I posed to him the question, suppose that your current company comes back and offers you the same thing or more. With those things, at least financially being equal, what would you do? What's the better option for you? And, one of the things, I'd say the key thing for him as far as his decision making went, sure, the offer and the finances played into it, but one of the key things was working remotely. So he knew that the current company was going back to 3 days a week, and he felt like they were going to be going back to 5 days a week, and he just didn't feel like that was most appropriate for him. So I think that made the decision easier for him. I mean, he was in a position where, he was being proactive. The company wasn't looking to replace him or anything like that. So I think, my advice to him would be, if you're going to, you feel like the opportunity that, the offer that you've given is the opportunity that's really good for you, go into it, put your all into it, and, do a great job. We talked about the idea of, networking as well too, but I don't think at this point he felt like he needed to look any further. This job checked a lot of the boxes that he was looking for, especially the big box of being able to work remotely. He also, something I didn't mention previous, he knew of this company. He liked their strategies. He had a certain passion for what they were doing and what they were into too, and I think that played a role in it as well also.
We've talked a bit here about fit, whether a job is a fit for you, whether you're a fit for the company. I think there's one thing that we need to keep in mind is that when you're interviewing for a company, they're really looking to put together a team. If you don't have a hard skill, like, you don't know how to program in a particular language, well, we can teach you that, but we can't teach you how to be a nice person, and they're looking to put together a good cohesive team that's really going to produce. And I've had a personal experience with this where I interviewed a person and they were good at the skills. However, through our talks, a few things came out, and I knew that if we hired them, it would completely fracture our team and we would have good people leaving. So in discussions with my manager, it was determined, that they would not be the right person to hire. And I know being in that group, everyone was, you know, a good person with each other, always helpful, never, you know, never any friction. And it really made for smooth activity works together. There was never any question of, oh, gee, I don't like working with so and so, and now they're putting us together. That, you know, that kind of mentality. So I think one of the things to keep in mind, you know, when, like Alex said earlier, you know, about being told you're not the best fit for something. I think that's one of the things that goes into making a decision about whether or not to make you an offer. You know, it may, part of it may be that there's somebody more qualified than you, but part of making that whole decision is how well you fit in with the team that they have, and can you make things better?
So, Don, those are great points. I mean, it's very important. And, you know, we talk about behavioral interviews, so they're trying to figure out that fit too, to see whether you would fit in well. Because most of us, you know, when we're working in a company, we're not an island. We're working cross-functionally, or we're working on different teams and things. So you need to be able to work with other people, you know, getting back to that idea of diversity. So, you know, it could be diversity of thought also, or you're coming, you know, from a different skill set, you know, so that can make a team stronger as well too. So yeah, that aspect of the fit is really important. So the better as an interviewer you understand that, or you can demonstrate how you've done that in the past, what your communication skill is like, what your personality is like, that can be the thing that can sell it. Because yeah, I mean, everybody that gets the interview is technically capable of doing the job. Typically, you know, they were filtered out at that point. So it's really what it boils down to is who's the best fit, you know, when everything else is equal as far as your technical abilities, or at least you're close on the technical abilities.
Donald, think about the word fit as a coin with two sides. From your sides is a personal impact. You don't fit, oh, something wrong with me. But from the employer point of view, the fit is a legal way to get out. They gave you an answer, you know, you cannot go back to them and say, what do you mean I am not fit? So it has a legal aspect to it. They say, I'm very sorry, you don't fit. We found somebody better. There's nothing for you to go back and make an accusation. So legally speaking, this is a very easy and acceptable way out from the other side of the coin, which is the company.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. You know, the company, as you said, also has to cover themselves. You know.
Anybody else still have a question? Still awake? And put everybody to sleep in? No? Okay. All right.
Well, it's Charlie. You know, when I was in one company for a very long time, and I noticed one thing about the teams within the company. Sometimes the teams coalesce because they were compatible, they worked well together, and the teams that formed themselves around everyday business within the company were somewhat more effective than the ones sometimes that the company put together. It's very difficult to put a team together when you're working with not exactly what you need to cover all the bases. And so sometimes that's why everybody a lot of people hate the team building business that comes down from corporate, the events. You know, it's just a comment that team building is difficult. And for someone to find the missing niche the person that fits the missing niche is difficult, and it's hard to define, other than it just didn't fit. You know, so sometimes that's what it comes down to. It's, you look great on paper, but there's something not there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would also say that leadership is important. We haven't discussed that today, but it's important, you know, be involved in leadership, sets the right standard for the team and helps guide and facilitate the team. So I think that's a critical piece of it too. I mean, you're going to have different personalities and people are going to bring different things to the table. So having a certain amount of conflict or different opinions is great. If everybody just agreed on everything all the time, then you wouldn't come up with more innovative or creative ways of doing things. So I think you need a certain amount of, you know.
Do they need a collaborative leader? Would they need a leader who's going to take the ball and run with it?
Yeah, that's
that's one fit issue.
Well, I've found in the past, Charlie, and you even haven't hit upon this, because I've worked for big engineering firms where a team was made up of people from various departments, but as far as each one of them was concerned, they still reported to their department manager, but you also had a project manager whose job it was to keep the team together and move the project along. And sometimes there were conflicts between the fact that you felt like you were working for two different people.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
You know, so that's another thing you have to assess is what type of leadership does a corporation have that you're approaching? Can you find out what sort of, how they do business before the interview?
Yeah. Okay, Nancy has a question. How important do you think leadership skills are for a candidate going for an individual contributor role? Well, you know, obviously I would say it's more important for somebody who's going to be managing people. So a part of it, I guess, would be, what are your aspirations too? Is that something, you know, where you would want to manage people in the future? So, you know, it would be something that you could work on if that was your goal. You know, leadership doesn't necessarily only mean working with people. You could be, you know, without having the title, you could be working on a team and you sort of take a lead role with it. So I think, you know, it's helpful to have, you know, some leadership skills and ability. It's not critical as an individual contributor, but again, I think it depends on where you see your career going. And if it's something you have aspirations for, it's something in a development plan when you're working with your manager, I think it would be something that would be helpful to suggest and say, hey, you know, I would like to lead a project, or, you know, I would like to be the head person on something. So I think it really depends on where you're, what you're comfortable with, what your goals and your strategy are, but it's certainly not mission critical.
Any other question from Mary?
Yeah, Mary's saying, if you've been working lower level jobs in the interim just to pay our bills, should we mention that on an application, resume / interview, even though it's way below our skill, education, experience level? Mary, I would go back to what I had said earlier about when Michael was asking the question about, you know, the older technology skills. I would answer it similarly, that if there are things, you know, in those jobs that you were doing that show, you know, your communication skills, your attention to detail, those things, you know, you can certainly highlight. You know, you're going to talk about when you go on an interview, you know, they're going to ask, what have you been doing? And you know, the fact that you've been working, it was important, you know, to help financially to pay the bills and things like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You're going to stress, you know, what you want to be doing and what you have the ability to be doing as well, too. You know, so again, it's you want to gear it toward what the job is, what their needs are, and you can demonstrate, you know, that you have skills and abilities not only just from the paid jobs that you've had, but volunteer work that you've done and other things too. So you want to stress where you want to go and what you've done in the past and how you can, you know, help this organization, but you don't need to shy away from what you're doing now. And, you know, you can answer honestly that, hey, you know, I needed to pay the bills and this was the way that I needed to do it. So I took that as an interim thing, and this is where I'm looking to get to, and this is why I'm going to be valuable to your organization and help you as a company reach your goals. I think that's it on questions. Going once, going twice. So,
You need a gavel?
yeah, I don't have a gavel here, unfortunately. I'll have to hit my head against the lectern or something. Thanks, everybody, for really great questions and a lot of commentary and good information. So appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And if there's any way that I can help you, you can get in touch with me. I would say I'm probably connected with most of you on LinkedIn. If we're not, then certainly send out a LinkedIn invite to me. And David listed my information there in the chat. So if you want to get a hold of me, you have any other follow-up questions, or if there's any way I can help you, I would love to do that. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
You have a chocolate. It's National Chocolate with Almonds Day. Yeah, so you were on a roll. Alan, thank you so much. And I hope so. I hope you all got a lot out of it. We had an opportunity, you had an opportunity to meet and speak with a career coach. And so some really good dialogue and questions. I hope this was helpful. And of course, you can reach out to Alan or any of the other career coaches through our network. They are listed also on our website under the resources page. Alan's information, Gary, Alex, and others are there as well. So I hope that you get some good value out of that. But Alan, thank you so much for sharing your insight and joining us. I mean, you've been such a supporter with our group for years anyway, and I'm so glad you could be here to help people more directly. And once again, I probably will never stop saying this. Thanks again to the Princeton Public Library, not just for being our friend for 10 plus years, but being able to accommodate us in this virtual format, hybrid format. So I'm glad that we are back in person, and I encourage, as long as you become comfortable, feel free to come on back. We will one day hopefully shift only to being in person, not in the near term. We will continue to stream, but we are back in our home here. So thank you very much to the library for supporting that. I want to let you know who and what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Next week, of course, we will be right back here and virtual again, so it'll be hybrid. Jan Goodman will be joining us. Jan is with the Greater Raritan One-Stop Career Training Center, essentially the state's career center in Somerset County. She will be talking about defeating unconscious bias, 5 strategies. And so there are unconscious bias that we may have interviewing, or maybe to help assist those who are interviewing us overcome some bias. So that will be next week. We will be right back here. The following week, July 22nd, Janice Coleman will be back. Let's get this game started. How to go hard in the paint with your job search in 2022. She is a sports nut, specifically basketball. So that's kind of the theme. And it was good fun when she presented to us a little over a year ago. So I'm glad that she will be back as well. Always fun to hear from Janice. I know Janice will be presenting virtually herself. Not yet sure if Jan will be here or virtually, but thanks to the setup that we have here, we can accommodate presenters virtually or in person. Also, tomorrow morning, the Breakfast Club of New Jersey is meeting. The Breakfast Club does meet, thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com. Marty Lattman will be presenting. I know Alan mentioned him a little bit earlier. Networking, using it throughout your life. So Marty is known as the best networker that many people know. He's the best networker I know, and you'll get a lot of good tips, not just for your job search, but being productive throughout your life and professional life. And of course, you can stop by and visit virtually any of our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, psjcnj.biz. PSGCNJ.biz meets Mondays at 10:30, and PSG of Morris County, the other county that starts with M, PSGMC.org meets Wednesdays at 9:30, so go check them out. For those of you that are in the room, there are still a few people that are not executive or staff. We do have a raffle. I have this book linked in, and I'll make you a deal. I can raffle this off to the three of you, and what's a little unfair is that two of you are married, so it increases your odds. Or I actually have two more books at home. So this is from Jeremy Sheffling, and Jeremy gave a wonderful presentation a couple of months ago and left some books for us for PSG in the library to raffle off. So we could do the raffle, or if either party, if you will be back here next week, I'll give one to you now and give one to you next week, and I'll have one more to raffle off. So thanks for being here. You both get books, or do you want to roll the dice? So oh, you do? Oh, well, that makes that easy. So it will be Michael. Congratulations. We had a few other people who did leave a little early, so they had to be here to win. So, all right, well, I was trying to make it easy for everyone. All right, so we are going to keep the meeting room open a little bit for those of you that are online. And Nancy, really appreciate your patriotic background. So very pretty, right time for Independence Day week. So that worked out very nicely. And for those of you who haven't seen before, she always has a different background every week. She's got more backgrounds than I have Aloha shirts. I mean, she's got a lot of backgrounds. So, folks, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for joining us here. For those of you that came back today. And until we get to see you all again very soon, I will simply say, bye, everybody.